My brother-in-law humiliated me at every family gathering, calling me a failure while my husband sat silent. When he sent anonymous complaints to sabotage my job, he forgot one thing: corporate IT tracks everything. And they tracked it straight back to him. The room went silent for a beat, then erupted in laughter. Plates clinked, wine glasses tilted, and someone even clapped. I sat there, fork in hand, staring at the mashed potatoes he had just passed me. My brother-in-law leaned back in his chair, grinning like he'd just delivered a punchline worthy of a late-night show. I didn't laugh. I didn't speak. I just swallowed the lump in my throat and forced a smile so tight it made my jaw ache. The first time it happened, I thought I was imagining it. We were at his parents' house for a barbecue. I had brought a homemade salad, something I'd spent hours preparing. As I placed it on the table, he looked at it and said, "Well, at least she's trying." Everyone chuckled. My husband gave me a quick glance and smiled as if to say, "Don't take it seriously." I stood there, unsure whether to laugh or walk away. I chose to laugh. That was my first mistake. Later that evening, he joked about my job. "She works in HR, right? So basically she sends emails and drinks coffee." Again laughter. Again silence from my husband. I remember thinking maybe this is just how they joke. Maybe I was being too sensitive. But something inside me shifted. I felt small. I felt like I didn't belong. It didn't stop there. Every family gathering became a stage for his mockery. He'd comment on my clothes. "Is that what they're wearing in budget offices now?" He'd mimic my voice, exaggerating my tone to make me sound clueless. Once during a holiday dinner, he asked me in front of everyone, "So, how's the exciting world of spreadsheets?" I tried to answer politely, but he interrupted, "I'm kidding. We all know it's boring." I looked around the table. No one stopped him. No one defended me. My husband just kept eating, eyes fixed on his plate. I started preparing myself before every gathering, rehearsing responses, choosing outfits carefully, even practicing a neutral smile. I became a version of myself that was quieter, more agreeable, less visible. But the more I shrank, the louder he became. And the more he mocked me, the more I began to question my worth. One afternoon, I arrived early to help set up for a birthday party. As I walked past the hallway, I heard voices coming from the kitchen. It was my brother-in-law talking to his wife. "She's barely employable," he said. "If it weren't for my brother, she'd be working retail." His wife laughed. "She's lucky she landed him." I stood there frozen. They hadn't seen me. I turned and walked back outside, pretending I had just arrived. That moment shattered something in me. It wasn't just him, it was the whole dynamic. I had married into a family that saw me as less. Not just as a joke, but as someone beneath them. I didn't tell my husband that day. I didn't know how. I didn't want to hear him say I was imagining it. Eventually I did bring it up. We were lying in bed and I asked him, "Why doesn't it bother you when your brother makes fun of me?" He sighed. "He's just teasing. You take things too seriously." I turned to face him. "But it hurts. It's constant. And you never say anything." He shrugged. "It's not worth starting drama over jokes." That night I stared at the ceiling, wondering what kind of marriage I was in. I had expected partnership, protection, someone who'd stand beside me. Instead, I felt like I was standing alone in a crowd. His silence wasn't neutral. It was permission. It told his brother that it was okay to keep going. It told me that my pain didn't matter. It was a Sunday dinner. The table was full: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. I had brought dessert, a homemade pie. As I placed it on the table, my brother-in-law smirked. "Wow, she's really trying to earn her keep," he said. "Charity case with a pie." Laughter again. Even his mother chuckled. My husband didn't say a word. I felt the heat rise in my face. I stood up, walked to the guest bathroom and locked the door. I sat on the edge of the tub, staring at the tiled floor. I didn't cry loudly. I didn't sob. I just let the tears fall quietly one by one. That night I didn't sleep. I lay awake, thinking about every moment, every insult, every silence. I thought about the woman I used to be, the confident, joyful, ambitious woman who had slowly disappeared. And I made a decision. Something had to change. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every insult, every smirk, every moment I had swallowed my pride to keep the peace. Something had shifted inside me at that dinner table and I couldn't ignore it anymore. I wasn't just hurt, I was tired. Tired of pretending. tired of shrinking. Tired of being the quiet one in a room full of people who laughed at my expense. The next morning I walked into work with a strange sense of clarity. I greeted my coworkers, smiled at the receptionist and sat at my desk like I always did. But beneath the surface I was bracing myself. Something wasn't right. It started with a meeting request from my manager. Nothing unusual, just a quick chat, she said. I walked into her office expecting a routine update. Instead, she closed the door and slid a printed email across the desk. "Have you seen this?" she asked. I scanned the page. It was an anonymous complaint accusing me of mismanaging files, mishandling sensitive data, and being unfit for leadership. My stomach dropped. "I know this doesn't sound like you," she said gently, "but we have to follow protocol." I nodded, trying to stay calm. "Of course. I understand." She assured me it was just a preliminary review, nothing formal yet. But the tone of the email, it was personal. It wasn't just about my work. It was about me. Over the next few days more emails surfaced. Each one anonymous, each one laced with oddly specific language. They referenced meetings I'd led, decisions I'd made, even conversations I'd had in passing. The phrasing was sharp, sarcastic, and strangely familiar. One line read, "She's barely qualified to manage a coffee machine, let alone a team." I froze. That was almost word for word something my brother-in-law had said at a dinner months ago. Another email mocked my degree, calling it a piece of paper from a second-rate school. He'd said that too, once in front of his parents while my husband looked away. I didn't want to believe it. Felt too petty, too cruel. But the pattern was undeniable. The tone, the insults, the obsession with tearing me down. It was him. I sat at my desk staring at the screen, heart pounding. If he was behind this, he wasn't just mocking me anymore. He was trying to ruin me. I walked straight to our internal security office. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just told them everything. "There's someone outside the company who's sending these," I said. "I think I know who it is." They listened carefully, took notes, and asked for copies of the emails. I gave them everything. They promised to investigate quietly without alerting anyone. For the next 2 weeks I went to work like nothing had changed. I attended meetings, submitted reports, smiled at coworkers. But inside I was waiting. Watching. Every time my phone buzzed, I wondered if it was another complaint. Every time I saw my manager, I braced for bad news. But nothing came. Then one afternoon my desk phone rang. It was IT. "Can you come down to the office?" the voice said. I walked in, heart racing. The lead investigator greeted me with a calm expression and handed me a folder. "We traced the emails," he said. "They came from a personal account. The sender used a home device but forgot one thing. Our system logs every external access attempt." I opened the folder. There was his name, his email, his IP address. My brother-in-law. I stared at the page, letting the truth settle. He had used his own laptop. He had accessed our system through a backdoor link, thinking he was clever. But he wasn't. He had left a trail. And now I had proof. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even speak for a moment. I just sat there staring at the evidence. The man who had spent years mocking me, belittling me, laughing at me, had tried to sabotage my career. And he had failed. I felt something shift inside me. Not rage. Not revenge. Something quieter. Stronger. I thanked the investigator, took the folder, and walked out of the office. My heels clicked against the tile floor, echoing down the hallway. Back at my desk, I opened my email and stared at the screen. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. He had crossed a line. And now I had the power to draw one of my own. I sat at the kitchen table with the folder in front of me, the evidence spread out like a quiet storm waiting to break. My husband walked in, still carrying the casual air of someone who believed nothing was wrong. I slid the report across the table. He picked it up, scanned the pages, and his face drained of color. "Do you still think I'm overreacting?" I asked, my voice steady. He didn't answer. His silence was louder than any apology he could have offered. The weight of the moment pressed down on us both. He set the papers aside, rubbed his temples, and muttered, "I didn't think he'd go this far." I leaned forward. "You didn't think? Or you didn't care?" His eyes flicked up, startled by the sharpness in my tone. For years I had swallowed my words, softened my edges, tried to keep the peace. But not tonight. "You let him humiliate me," I continued. You laughed with him. You told me I was too sensitive. And now here's proof he tried to destroy me. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I stood pushing my chair back. I don't need your defense anymore. I have the truth. That night I sat at my desk and opened the family group chat. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment, then I attached the report. No explanations. No commentary. Just facts. Within minutes the chat exploded. His mother typed, "This can't be real." His father demanded, "Explain yourself." His sister wrote, "I'm shocked. How could you?" And then his brother, the man who had mocked me for years, finally responded. "This is a misunderstanding. She's twisting things." I stared at the screen, almost amused. He was trying to wriggle out of evidence that bore his name, his email, his device. The family pressed him, asking for answers. He grew defensive, angry, desperate. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The truth was louder than anything I could say. The days that followed were a whirlwind. His reputation began to crumble, not just within the family but beyond. Friends who once laughed at his jokes stopped calling. His colleagues heard whispers. His wife avoided me entirely, her silence sharp and cold. At one point I ran into her at the grocery store. She glanced at me, then turned away without a word. I stood there holding a carton of milk, realizing how quickly alliances shift when the mask slips. But I didn't care. For years I had been their punchline, the one they dismissed, the one they mocked. Now they had to face the truth. My husband grew quieter, more withdrawn. He didn't defend his brother anymore, but he didn't apologize either. His silence was its own confession. I decided to take a short leave from work. I needed space, not just from the chaos but from the weight I had carried for so long. During those weeks I reconnected with myself. I started therapy where I spoke openly about the years of humiliation, the silence, the betrayal. My therapist listened, nodded, and reminded me that my voice mattered. I joined a local book club, something I had always wanted to do but never found the courage for. Sitting in a circle of strangers discussing novels, I felt a spark of joy I hadn't felt in years. I took long walks in the park, breathing in the crisp air, watching children play, couples stroll, birds scatter across the sky. Small things became anchors. Morning coffee, fresh flowers on the table, laughter shared with new friends. For the first time in a long time I felt free. Looking back, I realized revenge wasn't about hurting him. It wasn't about watching his reputation collapse or seeing his family turn against him. It was about reclaiming my voice. I didn't need to scream to be heard. I didn't need to fight for their approval. I just needed to stop letting them speak over me. The truth had spoken for itself. And in that truth I found strength. I thought about the woman I had been, the one who smiled through insults, who cried in bathrooms, who doubted her worth. She was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who had faced cruelty and chosen peace. As I sat in my living room, sunlight streaming through the window, I whispered to myself, I am not their punchline anymore. And for the first time I believed it.